Jay Fishman has been chairman and CEO of Travelers for more than a decade. He has built the company into one of the largest providers of property and casualty insurance in the United States. Earlier this year, he was diagnosed with ALS, known as Lou Gehrig's disease. On December 1st, he will step down as CEO and remain at Travelers as executive chairman. What did you know about ALS?
Boy, not very much. Knew Lou Gehrig.
Yes.
I'd listened to the speech.
Yes.
I was aware of Stephen Hawking and his condition generally, and that was about it. It just isn't something that presents itself on a daily basis to people.
And how old were you when the doctor said to you, you have ALS?
This isn't the easiest thing to diagnose. The symptoms often tell you whether you have the disease or not. And so when you present, how you present, complicated issues in essence then.
But he told you after how much diagnosis?
Oh, a lot. A lot of tests, a lot of examinations, probably about a year's worth of tests. I thought I had a bad back.
Yeah.
And had been to lots of different doctors and gone for lots of different treatments, one after another. And then finally someone said, I think it's time to go see a neurologist. And that was the sort of the breakthrough. I had not been, there was no one who caught it in those early stages.
I mean, how do you explain that?
So it's actually pretty common that it takes about a year from the first symptoms to get final diagnosis, typically by a specialist. Partly because very early in the disease, the manifestations are so protean and common. A little hand weakness. Well, there are a lot of reasons why we have hand weakness. And at that early stage...
What's hand weakness? Meaning you can't lift things?
Trouble zippers or keys. Or it might be your foot's a little weak, and the first indication of that is you trip. If for a man, it might be they trip on a golf course.
Yeah.
And after that, they say, you know, my leg's not right.
Those skills are not quite.
And they actually blame it often on that fall. It's very common. They'll go to their internist, and this is an uncommon disease in the grand scheme of things. And the internist will work you up for maybe a little back injury, as Jay mentioned, or if it's hand, something called carpal tunnel, a very common condition. A few more months go by, maybe they get surgery. It's very common to have carpal tunnel surgery for patients, or back surgery, because 30% of Americans have some kind of back problem. That all fails. Patient comes back to the surgeon and says, what'd you do to me? I'm not getting better. There's something wrong. And ultimately, that percolates to the time where a patient's finally referred to a neurologist, and that's about a year.
You see, what amazes me about that is that Jay would have access to the best doctors in New York by definition. And you're saying the best doctors did not have any sense that maybe we should see a neurologist.
That's very common. There's such mild things. One, an internist doesn't really see ALS that commonly. Even neurologists don't see a lot of ALS patients. Experts do. And so he or she are going to go after what's common. And it's only when the patient doesn't get better. And look, these are diseases like Alzheimer's. We don't treat right away with a drug that makes you better. So you watch, you say, I'll do a few tests. You don't get better. You come back. And that iteration just repeats itself, even with the best doctors.
And it wouldn't be this hard for someone. It ought to be easy to say, here are the common markers. These are the 15 things. You know, one is muscle twitching. And by the way, if your muscles are twitching, it doesn't mean by definition you have it. But that's a symptom that you want to have looked at. It is a red flag. And there are 10, 15 red flags that should bring someone to their doctor and say, something's not right here.
Now, is early diagnosis, what does that mean if there is early diagnosis?
I approach this, some of the best advice I got was to lean into the disease. The progress is inevitable. It is inevitable. The speed will vary patient to patient, but the needs that I'm going to have are clear. They're clear in front of me. And so to the extent that I can plan, anticipate, all helpful. Getting, for example, a wheelchair fitted when you can no longer stand is next to impossible compared to trying to do it when you can move from chair to chair and try the different chairs. Silly things like that. But being able to lean into the disease, really important. And two, for me, I just embrace the purpose of it. The real, my mortality, it just comes on you instantly. You understand. So now the question becomes, what am I going to do with the time I have left? I know that, it's 100% fatal.
Right.
I knew that increasing paralysis, and ultimately, if you're lucky, complete paralysis, meaning that you've survived long enough to reach that stage. Because what ultimately kills one, the demise is your breathing. You simply can't breathe.
Right.
It's really.
Do you have hope?
Well, not for myself, and by that I mean medical hope. I have no illusions that anything that's going on today will cure me. I'm engaged with my time, my resources, my energy, but moving the needle along so that once I'm gone, people will say, well, the couple of years that he had with this, he used it so thoughtfully and so productively. You can a mission, and I'm just
mission is
individualized examination of ALS. So we went through his lab, and there's a motor neuron in a dish, in a petri dish, and that motor neuron could be yours, you in the dish. And so now we can begin to test things against you, not against the whole population, but against you. And that then gets us into the whole notion of what's you. So DNA testing, genomic testing, I'm not even sure I know what genomic is, proteomic testing.
Right.
But
you know it.
what was so compelling about it to me was that basic science. Let's stop trying to find a drug and throw it at it. Let's see if we can understand the genetic dynamic of the disease and therefore maybe have better luck at treating it, much as what's happened with cancer. You look at what's happened to cancer treatment, that's where it's gone. What's the specifics you have? How do we treat it? And it was just someone would say that I raised, but more than me, $20 million, privately funded. So my family came in, travelers came in, my mentor Bob Lipp came in, the NFL came in, the PGA Tour came in. And then we met this wonderful fellow, Lee Rizzuto, who was in a mission unto himself, and we put together $20 million. Come forward with your ideas, and we'll collaborate. So I would say it's a mix of both. There are resources there. What you need are people thinking outside the box.
To ALS that will be similar to a pathway to Parkinson's or similar to...
Yes.
Go ahead.
Part of you that says somehow, somewhere, maybe something will happen.
I don't know. There's no. Not for me. But I've chosen to see it as an opportunity. That's how I wake up every day. What am I going to do today? Who am I going to call? Who am I going to hustle a few bucks for to do more research?
In somebody else's life?
That's correct. That's correct. The legacy, all I have left, I can leave to the illness that I've been dealt, is substantial, and I'm not going to lose that opportunity.
It was a year ago today that I announced publicly that I had ALS, August 5th. And that this was called Lou Gehrig's disease. He doesn't own it. He didn't own it. He borrowed it for a little while, but he didn't own it. Brian Savo, my wonderful partner this week, he owns it. I own it. And David Niven owned it. And Catfish Hunter owned it. And Stephen Hawking owns it. And Stephen Gleason owns it. And if you want to see what this disease is really about, go see the Gleason movie that was released, 2 weeks ago? Be prepared. It's tough to watch. But it is what it is. And for all of you to come together to help. And their names aren't Lou Gehrig or Catfish Hunter or Bruce Edwards or even Jay Fishman. They are Amy and Bill and Sandy and Jennifer and people who live with this disease every day. And I have tremendous admiration for them, because with all it takes to live with this disease, they do it. They get up every day, and they're on the job, and they're on the scene. And that takes stunning determination and grit. Take it from someone, I never say this, take it from someone who really understands the grit that it takes. These are people to be congratulated and celebrated and not referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease. The disease has a name, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and it is a miserable disease. And all of you are helping all of us bring it out of the shadows.
For $1.1 million.
Thank you so very much.